Imagine going through life with a lens that magnifies every good and bad thing that happens to you. Sometimes you feel like you're riding high on waves of joy and peace. Other times, you're dragged down by the weight of sadness and pain. It's like being on an emotional roller coaster, and it can be exhausting, right? But what if there's a way to see things differently, to see them in a way that brings peace, regardless of the situation? In this world, you're going to experience all sorts of moments, celebrations, moments of peace, tears, and even pain. That's just part of life. However, there's something important to remember. God has a bigger picture in mind. He sees everything from the beginning to the end, and He understands things in a way we just can't on our own. You see, our perspective is limited. We often react based on what's happening right in front of us. This can make it really tough to handle the hard times because all we see is the struggle. But what if you could trust that there's a reason for everything? What if you could believe that God has a purpose for both the good and the bad? This idea isn't just comforting, it's grounded in Scripture. In Romans 8:28, it says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him." This verse isn't saying everything will always be good, but it does promise that good can come from anything, thanks to God's plan. Let's take a look at a story from the Bible that illustrates this beautifully, the story of the widow at Zarephath. When the prophet Elijah met her during a severe famine, she was preparing her last meal for herself and her son, believing they would eat it and die. Her situation seemed hopeless, but then Elijah told her not to be afraid and to first make a small loaf of bread for him from what she had. He relayed God's message. The jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry until the day the Lord sends rain on the land. Can you imagine how she must have felt hearing this? When the widow chose to focus on God's promise and follow through with what Elijah asked, her situation changed. She moved from seeing her last meal to witnessing a continuous provision. Her jar of flour and jug of oil didn't run out. She saw firsthand that focusing on God and trusting in His word could literally mean the difference between life and death. This story and the teachings from Romans encourage us to shift our focus. When we concentrate on God, trusting in His goodness and plan, the world starts to look different. Challenges might not disappear, but our understanding of them changes. We begin to see opportunities for growth and renewal, and our fears start to diminish. That's the transformative power of living with faith in God's plan. What does it truly mean to live by faith and not by sight? When you focus on God, it's like putting on a new pair of glasses. Suddenly, everything looks different. Not because the world around you has changed, but because the way you see it has. Now, you might be thinking, that sounds great, but how do I actually do that? It starts with your daily choices. Each morning when you wake up, what's the first thing you do? Do you reach for your phone to check messages, or do you take a moment to talk to God? Starting your day with prayer, even something simple, sets the tone. It's like telling God, I'm putting you first today. And as you go about your day, keep that conversation going. When something good happens, thank Him. When something challenging comes up, ask for His guidance. It's about developing a habit of turning to God in every situation. This doesn't mean ignoring the realities of life or pretending that everything is perfect. It means choosing to see beyond the immediate to the eternal. When you do this, those overwhelming feelings of stress and chaos begin to fade. Remember the disciples in the boat with Jesus? They were terrified because all they saw was the wind and the waves, but Jesus was right there with them. Imagine if they had focused on His presence instead of the storm. Their fear would have turned into peace much sooner. This is the kind of transformation that happens when you make God your focal point. You start to see His power and glory in everything. The sunrise isn't just a sunrise, it's a reminder of His faithfulness. A smile from a stranger isn't just a small gesture, it's a reflection of God's love for you. And what about those really tough times, the ones that feel like they're going to break you? Those are the moments when this new perspective becomes crucial. Instead of asking, "Why me?" start asking, "What can I learn from this? How can this bring me closer to God?" This shift doesn't make the problem disappear, but it changes how you experience it. You see, when you focus on God, you tap into a source of strength that goes beyond yourself. You realize you're not alone, and you never have been. Even in the darkest times, God is there, guiding you, comforting you, and showing you a way forward. James chapter 1 verses 2-3 tells us to consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. That's a radical idea, isn't it? Finding joy in trials because they help you grow stronger in your faith. It's not the natural human response, but it's the response of someone who sees things through God's eyes. So, how do you start seeing things this way? It begins with a decision. You decide to trust God's plan for your life, even when you don't understand it. You decide to look for His hand in every situation, good or bad, and you decide to let go of your worries and let God handle them. It won't happen overnight. Changing your perspective is a journey, one that involves daily choices and constant trust in God. But as you make these choices, you'll find that your life starts to change. You'll feel less burdened by the things that used to weigh you down. You'll find more reasons to be grateful, and you'll discover a peace that doesn't depend on your circumstances. This way of living isn't for everyone. It's for those who choose to make God their focal point, those who are willing to live by faith and not by sight. If you're ready to make that choice, you're ready to start seeing every challenge as an opportunity, every hardship as a lesson, and every day as a gift from God. And when you live this way, every sunrise and sunset won't just be another day passing. They'll be a testament to God's endless grace and love. This is the beauty of focusing on God. It turns the ordinary into the extraordinary, and it brings a profound depth to your life that nothing else can. Shifting your focus towards God. Let's consider what this really looks like in your day-to-day life. It's about waking up each day and deciding to see the world through God's eyes. This perspective doesn't happen by accident. It's a choice you make every morning and commit to throughout your day. Imagine starting your day without the usual rush to check emails or social media. Instead, you take a few quiet moments to pray. Perhaps read a verse like Romans 12 verse 2, which urges you not to conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. This scripture sets the stage for a day lived differently, a day lived by God's good, pleasing, and perfect will. As you move through your day, this new focus impacts how you interact with others. At work or in your community, you're not just passing by people, you're seeing them as God sees them, precious and valuable. This view changes how you speak to them, how you help them, and how you understand their struggles and triumphs. When you encounter someone in need, rather than just seeing a problem to avoid, you see an opportunity to serve. Serving others becomes not just an act of charity, but an act of worship. It's your response to Jesus' command to love your neighbor as yourself, echoing the compassion and empathy He showed during His time on earth. And when trouble comes, and it will come, your first reaction isn't to panic or despair. Instead, you remember the story of Jesus calming the storm. His disciples were terrified, but Jesus, in perfect peace, rebuked the wind and the waves. Reflecting on this, you find your own peace, knowing that the same God who calmed that storm is with you in yours. This peace doesn't mean you won't feel the storm. It means that in the middle of the storm, you're not alone, and you have a source of strength and calm that doesn't depend on the circumstances. The challenges of life, instead of breaking you, forge stronger faith and resilience within you. Your focus on God also shifts how you see your own life. You might have once measured success by how much you achieved or owned. Now, you find joy in simpler blessings: the beauty of a sunset, the laughter of a friend, the quiet moments you spend in prayer. These moments aren't flashy, but they're profoundly meaningful. At the end of the day, when you reflect on what went well and what didn't, your thoughts aren't filled with regrets or what-ifs. Instead, you're filled with gratitude. Even the hardships teach you something valuable. Living this way isn't about ignoring the harsh realities of the world. It's about choosing to view everything through the lens of faith. It's knowing that every incident, every interaction is part of a larger divine tapestry that you're privileged to be a part of. This knowledge doesn't make life easier, but it makes it more meaningful. As you continue to navigate your days with God as your focal point, remember that every moment is an opportunity to live out your faith. In doing so, you transform not only your own heart and mind, but also the little piece of the world you inhabit. By focusing on God, you make each day a testament to His love and grace, inviting others to see the beauty of life lived in His presence.